After a successful conference where secondary schools and David Attenborough attended, all about climate change, Kingston and Richmond Youth Council were awarded £10,000 from the council in late 2020. And from that, they decided to set up a grant to fund local youth groups and schools to run climate initiatives and projects across the borough. And I'm joined with some of the members from the Youth Council today to find a bit more about that fund, how it works and what's been happening. So thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Isabella and I'm a member of the Kingston and Richmond Youth Council.
Hi, I'm Olivia and I'm also a member of the Kingston and Richmond Youth Council.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm also a member of the Youth Council.
Why do you guys think it's important that young people have the opportunity to learn about climate change and what they can do? And how did this project, or how did setting up their own project look to do that?
I mean, I think it's really important that young people are educated and get involved with combating climate change, because in the future, they're going to be the people in positions of power. And therefore, if they're made aware of these issues now, it will hopefully help us to really fight the issues as we move forward.
I couldn't agree more. And how do you think that by having these young people run their own project, that's doing that?
I think by specifically having them develop their own projects, it really gets young people to think and consider what the exact issues are around climate change that affect them and their communities. Because if it's just wider awareness, like increased recycling and increased just awareness of eating meat and things like that, I think that doesn't do a lot. Whereas actually making and developing your own projects really forces you to consider what the specific things in your communities and your areas are. And I think that directly engaging with yourself and your community is definitely going to have a much wider impact than just doing it more generally, but actually directly involving young people and making decisions themselves about what they prioritize. And then by engaging more with the process, they're more likely to actually follow on, and that will have a greater impact with combating climate change than perhaps traditional methods would.
Fantastic answer. So I believe that you guys came together and you wrote a brief about some of the topics that were covered in your conference, and that was looking at what you were looking to fund. So what were the main points of the brief that was given to these schools and young people?
The main points of the brief were to make sure that the projects included a wide variety of young people and not just a small group of them, but also making sure that it was completely young person led. So this in practice meant that schools were encouraged to involve a large group of students from different ages, different backgrounds, different walks of life, to make sure that everyone had a say on the matter and to make sure that everyone was engaged. And the project had to be based around the school or the local community to make sure that everyone was having a more direct impact than perhaps a more larger scale project. And we also wanted the project to be innovative, because I mean, what's the point of doing something that's already been done? And that was definitely met. We've had some amazing ideas that people have come up with. We've had people developing community gardens, people running upcycling events. We've had a wide variety of things, and I'd say innovation was definitely one of the things we were looking out for and encouraging schools to promote. And that's definitely something that we got.
Brilliant. So you wrote a brief and then schools and groups were encouraged to make applications to you. How many applications did you receive and what was the selection process like?
So in the end, we had 7 applications and we ended up funding most of them. But in terms of what the process looked like, so us youth council members were trained in how to run a commissioning project. And so we were giving specific training about how to analyze applications and make sure that we were unbiased, which was really interesting and also really useful. It meant that we felt like we knew what we were doing for the time it came to the real thing. And then we read through all of the applications, and these used a format which we had developed, and we also interviewed them.
Fantastic. And how did those interviews go? Were quite formal settings, or were they just sort of chats? How did you run them?
It was quite informal. Yes, of course, there's a degree of professionality that we needed to, conduct the interview, but we tried to keep it as friendly as possible, as approachable as possible, so that people really felt comfortable pitching their ideas and, just saying everything that they wanted to.
Brilliant. That sounds like a really good process. And I'm glad you guys learned a lot. So let's talk about the projects a bit more. You've sort of touched on a few of them now. Can you tell me or describe some of the projects that you funded and what they were aiming to do?
So one of the projects we funded was one that's been very successful so far, about upcycling and reusing things. So I think it's run by one of the youth centres in Hampton, and it's aiming to reduce fast fashion because, of course, that has many impacts on the environment, using resources very quickly. And this project had an event run only last weekend, and its aim was to encourage young people to go into an event and then get rid of some of their old clothes and then take in some new clothes. So they're not buying anything new, they're taking what's already there, and that of course reduces resource consumption, which is a very good thing. And it was really, really successful, with more than 200 people attending, and I'm really happy with how that project has progressed so far. But there have been other ones which have also been very successful, such as one in Hampton High. They've been having a gardening club running, and we've given them some money to be able to have their own greenhouse so they can grow some vegetables on perhaps a larger scale than normal, so that they can reduce the carbon footprints of their school meals. And yeah, I think that one's going to be very successful as well.
Another very ambitious project is this community garden project, which we've helped to fund. And so that will give young people a space to come together and learn about different issues relating to climate change. And it will also just give them a space to spend time in nature, which again is important for really valuing nature and protecting it from the effects of climate change. And also other members of the community will be able to use that space. And so we think that will be really powerful and a really good use of the money.
Building upon what Olivia said as well with the Community Gardens project, is that while it's definitely one of the most ambitious projects, I think that if they are successful in their aim, which I really hope they are, it's just such an amazing idea, because you're getting so many young people involved with nature and the outdoors. And I think if people learn to appreciate the natural world, then that's definitely going to make them more motivated to then help protect it. And I think that is reflected within how that project is getting their resources. All their resources are reused or recycled, and I think that is definitely going to be a very strong project, both with the young people being affected, taking part now and helping to shape it with reusing resources, but also for generations to come, as they can learn to appreciate the natural world through that project. So that's definitely one that I'm looking forward to seeing how it progresses in the future.
They sound like fantastic projects, and definitely like they're having positive impacts on both the community and the local climate as well. So that's fantastic. So what do you think you learned through the project about young people's attitudes to the climate, both your own attitudes, but also the young people's projects that you funded?
I'd say we all felt really strongly that young people are very passionate about climate change, but also very willing to get involved and to give up their time and volunteer with these different projects. And they're not worried about how the project might go wrong. I mean, they're rational. All of the projects had very well thought through proposals. But I'd say that young people are optimistic, and they look at what could go well and how they could improve their local community. And that's been really uplifting to see.
Do you have any advice for young people who want to make a difference to the climate, or who are thinking about running a climate-based project?
I'd say that the biggest thing is just do it. There's going to be, I mean, of course you have to plan what you want to do and everything, but if you just do all the planning, get it right, don't overthink it, right? And if you have a great idea, people it will work, right? You work with youth clubs. It will be my biggest, sort of advice with youth clubs. They're always willing to try new things. Work with your school, because they're, most of the schools are very willing to help with eco projects. And yeah, just use all the resources you found you, and you should be good to go.
I'd just build upon what Praneeth said there. I'd say if you have any ideas or if you're even thinking about running a project, I'd definitely recommend doing it. It's a really rewarding experience. And I think that no one should really feel that they aren't able to have an impact in their community. I think that each of us are able to, and I think it's very important that we have the ability to do that. So I'd say on top of what Praneeth says, if you have an idea for a project and you want to do something, I would definitely recommend talking to your school or go and talk to your local youth club, or even if maybe funding is an issue for your project, feel free to talk to us, feel free to talk to your local youth council, or maybe even ask your council for funding. People are only too happy to listen to the ideas you have, and if you need support, people can be there to help you. And I'd say, as Praneeth was saying, youth clubs definitely are very open to trying new ideas, and I think if you have the passion to do something, people are only too happy to help you with that, because at the end of the day, any positive impact to the local community won't just be helping you, but it will be helping as well the people that you're asking for help. So I'd say definitely just go for it. There's nothing to lose from it, and you will at the end of the day be having an amazing impact both on yourself and your community. So I'll definitely recommend it.
And just adding on to that, if you really don't know where to start but know you want to do something to help, I'd recommend looking around your community and seeing what's missing. I mean, just to use an example of one of the projects that we commissioned, they realised that they didn't have a gardening club in their secondary school, and they thought that some good could really come out of that. And so they built their project from there. And so I just say, look at what you're passionate about, and look at what you think you can improve in the area around you. And then really just go for it, because like Isabella said, there's so much you can gain and so much that you can help others to gain, and you really should feel empowered and feel able to make a change, because young people really can.
So talking about youth and all of the fantastic things that they've done, but what do you think adults of Richmond could learn from the young people who have taken part in one of these projects?
I think one of the most important things that should be taken by adults from this project is that young people can do things, and that they do have strong opinions and things on both local and national issues. I think often young people are just almost pushed aside and not allowed to express their opinions or enact change in their areas. But I think these projects really show and demonstrate that young people do have passions, they do have concerns about the environment, but also that they do have the ability to create change if they are allowed to. So I think it's really important that adults know and learn that we can do things, and they shouldn't just try and prevent us from doing that. They should definitely allow us to do that. But I think as well, on the other sort of side of it, adults should also be able to learn that even though they might be busy with a job or with work and things, they too can have an impact with projects if they choose to run one. Because at the end of the day, we also have commitments. We have school, we have clubs, we have hobbies, but as shown with the amazing young people who we funded, we are still able to run projects. So I think that to any adults who might be listening to this, they can learn from us that even if you do have jobs and commitments, it is still possible to have an impact and a change in your own way. I think that even if it is only a small thing, little actions can accumulate and you can have a change. So I'd say just be inspired by all the amazing work that's happened, and I think you really can make a difference. So I would encourage you to go for it.
It sounds like you guys have done a fantastic job setting up all these projects and inspiring other young people to get involved and run their own projects. So is there anything else about the commission projects or about the commissioning process that you want to highlight, or anything else you want to say?
I'd just say overall, it's been an amazing opportunity to be part of and an amazing experience to have. So I just want to thank Richmond Council for actually giving us the money and allowing us to do this, because it's taught me and everyone else on the Youth Council a lot about just the process of commissioning, but also climate change further in general. And I think it's been a really invaluable opportunity to have. But I would say also to any young people listening to this or watching this, a main thing that you should sort of think about or take away is that we can all have an impact. And I would definitely say, if you have something that you want to do, something that you want to change, I would say definitely go for it. It's a really rewarding and valuable opportunity. And I would say just go for it. It's definitely something to consider.
I mean, just adding on to that, I definitely feel that this project's highlighted the ability that Youth Council can have to empower other young people. I mean, I think it's a great example of young people working together to make real change. And as Isabella was saying, you know, change is something that young people can make, and it's something that the young people we've spoken to so far have really enjoyed making, and they've really enjoyed the project. And I think often young people can feel quite anxious about climate change. I know there have been studies about it released recently, but by getting involved, I think it definitely helps people to feel empowered and to feel that, you know, they can make a difference. And so I've found it really very rewarding, and I've loved being involved with it.
I think that the entire commissioning project has been a great experience, as like Isabella and Olivia said. It's really just shown us the process of commissioning, and I think that us being so successful in the 10,000 grant might, you know, make the council do another round of it, which means that if you're listening to this and you're a young person, right, keep your ears out, you know, and if you hear that there's another, you know, commissioning project, you know, jump on the opportunity, yeah. And but in the meanwhile, keep thinking of new ideas, and yeah, I can't wait to hear your new ideas.
Thank you so much, guys, for one, being so inspiring, but two, from all of us Richmond residents or people that work in Richmond, a huge thank you for all of the work you've done to make a difference to young people, to communities, but also to climate as well. It's a fantastic job you're doing, and keep doing it. And hopefully there'll be more projects coming from this type of process. So thank you very much.